Vez uploaded the new Seraphim design to the market. Unlike the 2R, the Seraphim boasted a much more complex integration of disparate components. The working model demanded that Vez take particular care during the fabrication and assembly of parts. His increased proficiency in working with the 3D printer helped him to print parts with less deviation than normal. The precision assisted him during the assembly and resulted in fewer problems. However, he received a fright when he saw the final bill for the frame. I already spent 4,400 gold coins on the raw materials. If I automate Iron Spirit's production, then the final price will at least double. A one-star mech that cost around 8,800 gold was a luxury within the game. It took an average player months to amass such an amount. Vez decided to add a credit price to his model. Since it's a high-performing model, I at least feel justified in charging real money for the Seraphim. He set a modest price of 3,300 bright credits per model, which was the bottom end of what the game demanded. If he sold his mechs for bright credits, the cost of materials and manufacturing would also be deducted in the same currency. So, in essence, Vez earned no profit at that price. However, 3,300 bright credits still put the Seraphim well into the premium bracket. Vez felt nervous competing against better designed models that he knew mech pilots could acquire for a similar price. I don't think Fantasia will do too badly, he told himself. It's one of the few flight-capable mechs in this tier, after all. That's gotta be worth something. Vez refused to sit on his laurels once he had finished putting the Seraphim up for sale. There were thousands of customized Fantasia models and millions of other one-star variants on the market. Hundreds of new creations popped up every day. So, Vez had to go the extra mile to make his product stand out from the competition. First, he visited all the major mech enthusiast boards on the galactic net and shamelessly created posts to exaggerate the Seraphim's performance. He then visited Cloud Curtain's virtual mech pilot community and touted the Seraphim as a patriotic purchase, as it integrated the planet's famous festive cloud generator. His online posts generated minimal amounts of attention, and Vez decided that there was too much competition for them to make an impression on the net. His pathetic attempts at advertising were like drops in the ocean. After he considered the issue for a few minutes, Vez decided to take the plunge and sign up for a short-term advertising service that the game offered. Iron Spirit had a sprawling market, and the developers knew that all the designers wanted their creations to stand out. So, Iron Spirit's marketplace offered several tiers of advertising, such as putting a design at the top of search results or putting it on display in a virtual environment. The cheapest option started at 1,000 bright credits a day, and Vez bought a package deal. It cost him 9,000 credits for 10 days of sporadic advertising. This only left him with 11,000 credits in his account, which made him effectively bankrupt. Making money comes later, he decided. Right now, it's best for me to complete the system's mission. I'll earn much more once I receive a real production license. Peddling thousands of digital mechs in a game just doesn't compare to making a single sale in the real universe. After he had finished setting up his advertising campaign, Vez had plenty of time left, so he asked the designer to come up with cheaper variants. His experience modifying the Fantasia model helped him recognize the areas where he could improve. Let's start with up-armoring the chassis, he muttered. As he tinkered with his designs, someone else on Cloud Curtain logged into Iron Spirit and checked out his profile. Triceratops looked at the newly registered account with interest. Chasing Clouds finally uploaded a new mech, he thought. Let's see if it looks as stupid as his first creation. The teenager imagined that the new Fantasia would sport an exaggerated chest or something equally obnoxious. What he found instead was a magnificent creation. The highly customized mech looked like Fantasia on steroids. Its wide, expansive wings protruded gracefully from the celestial clouds on its back. The rainbow coloration offered a little utility in combat, but it made the Fantasia look as if it had stepped out of heaven. Only the custom mech's menacing red eyes and lengthy marksman rifle betrayed the model's grit. Triceratops quickly figured out the mech had been designed with aerial sniping in mind. Aerial sniping was one of the most difficult specializations a pilot could undertake. But at least this mech included a built-in aim assist module. So it's called a Seraphim, huh? Triceratops said, reading the description. Well, it's definitely taken Fantasia to the next level. The mech excelled in both looks and performance, though Triceratops intended to specialize in medium-weight mechs. He was nonetheless interested in buying the Seraphim and adding it to his mech stables. His eyes scrolled down the specifications sheet in admiration before he inevitably ended up at the price. He looked at the figure in disbelief. What? He cried. 3,300 credits. That's a ripoff. At least the gold price looks more realistic. Unfortunately, 4,400 coins was also out of his price range. He couldn't justify spending that much when he hadn't yet outgrown his Gronig Halman mech. He calmed himself down and curbed his impulsive urge to purchase the Seraphim. If he had known at that point that the gold price of the Seraphim would double once the handcrafted model sold, he would more than likely have flipped his lid. For him, paying in credits was entirely out of the question. He was a kid, and he only received around 50 credits in pocket money. His income was far too insufficient to splurge on an in-game item. His parents would be furious if he wasted that much money. This mech is well out of my price range, he thought. There's no way I can buy such a luxury model. But I think I know someone who can. Where's my friend list? Triceratops. Yo, buddy, are you up? The seventh snake. What up? Triceratops. I found a new mech variant on the market. I think you'll be interested. The seventh snake. It must be something weird if you're taking the time to tell me about it. Give me a name, and I'll check it out. Triceratops. Fantasia 2R Seraphim. The seventh snake. Damn, you're right. This is the best Fantasia I've ever seen. But what's up with the price? I could buy a top-performing flight mech with all that gold and still have some left for bling. Triceratops. All those flight mechs either look like birds or hobos. This is one of the few Fantasias with a decently integrated flight system. You can even do some cool tricks with the cloud generator. Just give it a spin, man. The seventh snake. Why are you trying to push this mech anyway? Do you know chasing clouds? Triceratops. Nah, I lost an arena match against another custom Fantasia by the same designer. I've been keeping my eye on him since then. The design for his first mech was insanely stupid. The seventh snake. Okay, let me check out his profile. The Fantasia 2R, right? It's the only other model in his account. Oh. Triceratops. ... The seventh snake. XD. Triceratops. Yeah, I know. The seventh snake. You've got to send me the replay footage of that match. Triceratops. Forget about it. The seventh snake. Please. Triceratops. I'll send it to you if you buy the Seraphim. The seventh snake. Sure, done. Triceratops checked his friend's public profile and saw that, as promised, the angelic mech had been recently added to the seventh snake's mech stable. He was sure he had bought the mech with credits. Earning gold in the Bronze League was hard. Triceratops knew that the snake could afford to waste a couple of thousand credits because he had a rich father. Remaining true to his word, Triceratops sent the replay file to his friend. A few minutes went by. The seventh snake. No wonder you're so obsessed. You got crunched by someone's ass. That last moment is gold. Triceratops. Yeah, I know what happened. Now I'm gonna have to live with that for the rest of my life. The seventh snake. You should show this replay in class. Everyone will love it. Triceratops. Not anytime soon. Are you entering a queue already or what? I want to see your Seraphim in action. The seventh snake. All right. As a bona fide second-generation rich kid, the seventh snake lived a comfortable life. He possessed decent looks and a wide circle of friends, and did well in school. Other than the frequent absence of his overworked parents, he wanted nothing. Almost limitless income was just the icing on the cake. His parents had hired retired mech pilots to tutor him ever since the government had revealed he was one of the 3.5%. Naturally, they didn't want him to make a career out of it, but having the status was enough to appeal to their elitist nature. Being a pilot came with an excess of benefits that improved daily life and opened doors for the future, including subsidies and priority access to universities. His parents had even bought him a personalized mech simulator so he could play Iron Spirit at home. The matchmaker finally managed to find an opponent for the seventh snake. Curious, he checked his opponent's profile while the game loaded the battlefield. Player profile. Nickname, Cassie the Fox. League, Bronze. Wins, losses, draws, 307, 276, 0. Equipped mech, Orion Inc. Excelsior, EE26. Stock. Weight classification, heavy. She had good taste, he remarked. The Excelsior is a tough nut to crack. Many players ranked the Excelsior as one of the top 50 one-star stock mechs in Iron Spirit. Its 4 heavy legs provided remarkable stability, while its centaur-like torso boasted 20% more armor coverage than its bipedal equivalents. What made the mech so appealing was that it was crammed with energy weapons. It boasted enough lasers to tear anything in the air to shreds. Only the mech's slow speed, average target acquisition, and terrible ventilation issues stopped it from ranking among the top 10. Lucky for the snake, the map that had been randomly selected by the game featured many canyons and a desert environment. The Excelsior would struggle to find a pool of water to assist it with its ventilation issues. Once the match started, the seventh snake instantly engaged his wings and took off above the canyon. He landed above a plateau with a commanding view, though his flight included a jerky and unstable trajectory. It was nonetheless impressive that he could maintain control of his mech, despite it being his first time piloting it. This is a lot rougher than the flight systems I've trained with. There's no stabilization. Regular reservists only learned how to control a flying mech during their last year in class. But the seventh snake had managed to get a head start due to his private tuition. If he hadn't had that experience, he wouldn't have felt confident purchasing and using the Seraphim during a battle where he knew Triceratops was spectating. You're watching this, right? Let me give you a show, then. The Fantasia 2R Seraphim extended its hair sensors in every direction while it engaged in active scanning. Doing so revealed its position. But the seventh snake didn't mind because he knew the Excelsior couldn't reach him so far from the ground. After a few seconds, he noticed a blip on his radar. So she's not even hiding, he exclaimed. Good. That saves me the trouble of combing the valleys. Cassie the Fox had chosen to make her stand in an open field with only a few cliffs and canyons nearby. Her choice reflected her desire to keep all her angles available, to give her lasers a clear line of fire. Her Excelsior's quadruple legs had already dug into the soil, increasing the mech's stability. Cassie the Fox evidently wanted to slug it out. I'm not afraid of you, the seventh snake roared. He lifted off and flew toward his opponent, toggling on the cloud generator to announce his approach. The Excelsior was caught off guard by his majestic entrance. The Seraphim immediately opened fire, and its DMR spat out compressed energy bolts at a frightening speed. Some of them even managed to land glancing blows on the Excelsior. Despite the Seraphim's constant movement, the enemy pilot regained her composure after sustaining the hit. She raised the Excelsior's arms and released a cascade of laser fire from its built-in barrels. The Seraphim's ECM helped to muzzle the Excelsior's accuracy, but the barrage of fire overwhelmed its awkward attempts to dodge the attack. You annoyed, little fly? Cassie the Fox screeched on the public channel. "It doesn't matter how many gimmicks you use, I'll still swat you down." "How about you actually hit me more than a couple of times before you start boasting?" he retorted. Cassie realized she was overreacting and calmed down, slowing her rate of fire. Though that meant her chances of hitting the Seraphim decreased, it also bought her some time for her mech to cool off between rounds. The battle between the two mechs quickly became one of attrition. The heavier mech relied on its prodigious armor to tank the DMR's punishing blows, while the Seraphim relied on its aerial superiority and ECM to avoid most of the lasers shot in its direction. The Excelsior would face a significant disadvantage if the heat was allowed to build up too much, while the Seraphim would potentially face trouble once its energy reserves ran out. Flying wasted a lot of energy. The Seraphim ejected energy packs constantly from its chassis, while the seventh snake kept dodging in the air. Soon, the Seraphim had painted the sky with streaks of rainbow clouds, as if it intended to transform the battlefield into a piece of artwork from heaven. The seventh snake knew that would stop once the Seraphim exhausted its energy. Without its flight capabilities and a working rifle, the light mech would be a sitting duck. "This is so unfair to let heavy mechs fight against light ones," he complained. "This really is the worst possible matchup." Heavier mechs offered more space for armor, energy, cooling, and weapons. They always won battles of attrition due to their higher overall capacity. The Seraphim would run out of energy long before the Excelsior could no longer handle the heat. He had to do something. He stopped firing his DMR and attached the energy feed before letting it drop. Instead, he retrieved the combat knife from its holster and held it with both hands. The Seraphim flipped in the air and proceeded to accelerate downward. Its knife sliced through the air. He thrust the weapon forward. "Are you crazy?" Cassie the Fox asked in surprise, though she was whooping for joy as she narrowed her firing angle. Now that the Seraphim was closer to the Excelsior, it presented a much easier target. Several beams of superheated light landed on the slimmer mech's head and ruined both the ECM and aim assist, which made it easier for Cassie to land her shots. However, most of the lasers that hit the torso seemed to only burn the redundant armor. Only the hits that landed on the wings of the flight system achieved any real damage. Fortunately, the Seraphim relied almost entirely on momentum to dive downward, so the loss of downward thrust hardly affected the mech at all. Its cloud generator pumped out a continuous colorful stream of vapor, which made it seem as if the Seraphim was a kind of highly charged falling star. The distance between the two mechs closed rapidly, and just before the two collided, both pilots moved. The Excelsior wasn't stupid enough to remain stationary and take the hit. Cassie the Fox redirected her emergency power into the Excelsior's legs, allowing it to jump to the side with a surprisingly springy action. But the Seraphim had anticipated the move. With only 100 meters to go, the feminine mech made another aerial flip, adjusting its fall to match its enemy's trajectory, while pointing the mech's heels downward. The two collided with a massive crash, and the impact echoed around the walls. Triceratops, who had been spectating from the side and paying rapt attention, couldn't determine whether the Seraphim's suicide mission had succeeded. Smoke, flame, and colorful smoke engulfed the crash site, making it unclear whether anything was left intact. "Damn it! Who won?" Triceratops cried.